Hello, and welcome to Thingness.
This podcast is one part of our domestic microgallery. In each of these episodes, we sit down with our current exhibitor and talk about objects, things, and collecting in relation to exhibiting outside of white cube norms. We are Hannah
And Martin, and today we are joined by Johanna Sevholt. Would you like to tell us something about yourself and maybe your artistic practice?
Yes, I am from Gothenburg in Sweden, and now I am in Bergen studying at the KMD, doing my master's on the second year. I work with like painting, and I work with clay, and I try to think about it as like a collage where I work around different questions, and now I'm really going into memories and trying to understand how memory works through my work, asking questions and thinking about it in pictures and sculptures.
Amazing. Okay, could you describe your relationship to things, objects, and collecting then?
Yeah, it's just so funny. When I listened to your first podcast, I also thought that I'm a stone collector. If you're like a stick collector or a stone collector,
Nice.
I'm a stone collector. I used to collect stones every time I went out for a walk, and then just put them in my dad's house, and then I just had to stop.
You had to stop?
I had to stop.
But
because
isn't
it
this
was
a-
too much stones.
Yeah, but isn't this a thing of like the stick people, they don't necessarily bring the sticks back, but the stone people do?
I also have a stick that I found
Huh?
that I think is still there.
Just one stick?
Just one stick. No, yeah, but maybe... But it depends if it's like a walking stick or if it's a stick. But a stone you always bring back because you put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
I think I have stones here now. No.
And what do you usually do with the stones? So like you said, you brought them back to your dad's house. Was it like a placing them, kind of arranging them, or would you pick them up and, I don't know, hold them, or?
Yeah, the important thing that was that they would feel good in the hand when I picked them up. And then I would put them in my window. And then the windowsill just got full. And then I think we just throw them out and had them outside of the house.
And do you still do that now?
No, I had to make myself stop.
Do you collect stones here in Bergen?
No.
No, so that was like
No,
a period.
Yes. Yeah,
of stone
it's just
collecting.
like... It's like a thing you can't do. You can't collect anymore. I can't. I have to... Otherwise, you imagine, like, I work out, like, 2 times a day. Imagine how much stones it's gonna be. But I usually bring stones back from every travel. I had two stones that I picked when I walked up on the volcano in Chile. And then I lost them, both of them. That's a bit sad. I think I had one in my pocket and then it washed.
And
Yeah.
got somewhere in the machine.
I guess so. Yeah. So that's... but then I also, collect books. But I don't know if you can consider collecting books like... It's a collection, but it's a... Yeah.
I think collecting book only gets to like the collecting when you have too many of them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when it becomes like obvious.
Yeah, then
Some
now
sort of
it's
like
too
an
much.
obsession,
Yeah.
I don't know, I think you could have like I see myself as I've been collecting these small, they're kind of poetry or like art text, and they're all about a similar size, and I maybe only have about 10 of them, but I see them as a collection.
But that's a
because
very specific, it's not like general, like you collect books, you collect little
a specific type of
types,
book.
yeah.
But then you say it like that, then it becomes a collection. And is it like a difference to have a collection? Like my stones was not a collection. It was more like hoarding.
Oh,
Like
so-
uncontrollable taking things home. Whereas like a collection, what you're talking about is like a selection.
yeah, it's
If I
like-
would have selected out and like, okay, maybe just kept some of the stones. It's like I have shells. And I just keep some shells. Like I have oyster shells.
So maybe it's like collecting versus being a collector,
Oh yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah, but the hoarding is like, it is collecting.
It's also
just collecting on another level,
Yeah.
you know.
But is it a selection?
I mean, the hoarder is not selective,
No.
but the
So maybe
collector
collector
maybe
is
is,
selective.
yeah.
So it's an interesting.
Yeah, that's a good distinction.
I mean, I also collect photographs, I guess. I take photos and then I go and get them out from the... I'm not doing it myself.
You get them printed?
Yeah, I get them printed and then I put them in piles. But some of them I select and put in albums. So that's like my selection and my collection.
But these
creation.
Yeah.
But these photos, are they like something that you use then in your art? Like
Yes,
as
sometimes.
reference pictures?
Yes, sometimes I even have them in the collages, like I silk screen print them, or like take photos of them and then put them in like my work, or I make something with them. Yes, definitely. It's almost better to do something from those photos than the ones I take with my phone. I don't know why, but
maybe when you're taking, at least for me, I know that when I take a picture with like an analog camera, it feels like more of an event to have done rather than to have just snapped it with my phone. Yeah. Should we move on to the works that you've brought today into the shelf? Maybe we could just start a little bit by describing the kind of materiality of these.
It started with like a small perfume bottles. Maybe that's not the materiality, but yeah, this is how the outline of how it began, with like a little perfume bottle that my grandmother had in her house, and I saw it, and then I was just, I want to do something with it. And then when you guys asked me if I wanted to do something, then I was like, I'm just gonna do something with this bottle. And then other things happened that made it like more important to do something with it. And then it's just like I thought about redoing it again and again with my hands. So then I wanted to make it in porcelain. Because I don't really remember like what the first perfume bottle looked like. So it was white, so it has to kind of make me think about porcelain. So maybe porcelain is some kind of like, also you think about perfume bottles or something that's a little bit delicate. Then you think about porcelain.
It's like precious.
Yes. And then I started also to make remake clay at school. And then I wanted to try to do it in that clay, because porcelain is like a very hard material to work with. It's a little bit like, has its own wheels. So I wanted to try to make it in another kind of clay, just to see like if I could just like build faster and get some feeling of the form that I wanted to make. So then I just went with those two kind of clays. And then I also knew that I wanted to paint on them, paint pictures and kind of like destroy them.
And when you say destroy them, this is an
destroy,
act.
maybe that's actually a very bad word.
But you a part of the process is you dropping the things and then creating these shards. And this was something that you did earlier last year, and then you've done again for this. But this time you've written something on the back before dropping them, right? So what is it that you've written on the back of these pieces?
Yeah, I tried to decide if I wanted to say this, but my grandmother passed, so it's about her and like grief and like what I remember from her. What I can't grasp the full picture of who she is, because I haven't known her whole life. She didn't tell like she was very much my grandmother. So it's like, this is the picture I have, but even though with like memory, like I don't even have like the full scope of our relationship. When I try to think about it, this kind of gets very vague, and like pieces are gone already from my childhood and from like other years. So I kind of thought that if I would like do like images on porcelain and also the other clay and then crash them, they would kind of and then I couldn't pick like all the pieces of that was our relationship, so I have to like choose some of the pieces. And that's also like now in like the time after her passing, it's kind of also I'm like kind of in a period where it's like I'm also kind of forming some kind of what pieces I want to remember, or what comes back. And maybe other things will come back later, but it's like kind of like it's a weird time.
So in a way also then the process that you've gone through today, picking which shards will be in the shelf, is kind of reflective of what you're going through memory-wise in your brain.
Yeah, definitely.
this perfume bottle, was this her perfume? Did she wear this perfume?
No.
She did not.
No.
Because
But that's the interesting part.
Yeah. Because like, otherwise, like, you know, sort of smell memory is like one of the strongest memories. Because it's also like more subconscious than visual memory. It's kind of nice that you have linked these things with it.
And also that you've added smells to our shelf. So not only do we have this visual aspect, we actually have a smell aspect in our shelf. So you've placed dried rose petals in some of the bottles, and then we have Epsom salts in the shells that you've made. And
they're also painted with encaustic, no?
Yes.
Yeah, so they smell a little bit like beeswax.
Oh
yes,
yeah, and the
beeswax
element.
It would have been cool if I could put the rose smell in beeswax, and that's another level. No, and I actually have found a real perfume bottle, and it's not my grandmother's, it's my aunt's, and it smells of violets. But that we found at the funeral when I already started the project, and I think it's interesting also. I don't have a good sense of smell, so I actually don't remember the smell of my grandmother. I have no smell memory from my childhood. So it's kind of now I'm just adding something. I'm just for every time I remember and do these things, and when I repeat making the perfume bottle, I'm also changing it a little bit, and I'm also changing the memories. And by adding this rose petals that also are a part of my childhood, but I don't really know where they are because they are growing where we grew up. I'm also invading the memories and just adding things that were not there. As I also always assumed that the perfume bottle was my grandmother's, and both me and my brother, we always smelled it when we came to her house. And now it's just and now I put another smell, and I wouldn't maybe in a couple of years now I've said violets, I will remember it, but yeah.
But maybe somehow the roses will get kind of... Yeah. I like the way that you said invaded in my memory. It feels like it's, I don't know, this alien, this thing that's kind of coming in, but in a way that is how memories change. Especially when you speak. I feel like when you talk about a memory with someone else, even their response to it or something that they say kind of it slowly creeps in and then it evades.
Permeates,
and adapts the memory.
So that's So
and then how was the process then of bringing these things and then placing them in this shelf? How do you see this kind of, the ideas and the memory and these objects then link to this object in a way?
I mean, the perfume bottle kind of fits very nicely into this little slot.
Yeah, they fit very, very well.
And also the way that, some of the people that used to make perfumes back in the day, how they were collecting things. Almost sort of herbalists or apothecaries.
It's kind of this kind of apothecary, how they were placed out in shelves. That's actually true.
And it's not just the collecting, because there is also an expiring date on the ingredients. You have to keep collecting.
Oh yeah. And keep collecting the kind of different herbs from the different...
Yeah, I guess it would have potentially been an annual thing in a way. Harvesting.
Yeah. And reapplying. I actually had an answer, but I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, that was the answer. No, I actually was thinking about... I watched a lot of Korean drama shows, and at home they have this kind of altars in their houses where they every year they go and then they give things to the ones that are dead. So it's kind of when you collect things from someone, or in this case it's my memories of her or my impressions or my thoughts, then it also becomes an altar.
Yeah. And you put a little incense, and that's a very particular smell.
The smells, and then with rituals, if we would do the thing with bathing the feet, then it's also like a ritual that you do and you acknowledge someone's presence. Which that's like what I thought. That was also like a thing that I thought of very early, that it was kind of like an altar.
Like an altar to her.
Yes, and I know she also was a collector of sorts. She collected little gnomes, like tomtar, that were always there on Christmas. She had so many. And then she had like painted porcelain things that she put. And she also has kind of like altars where like the cups were up in like fronts, and then she had the photographs. So we are actually like, and when I look at, I mean, I think I'm more messy than she is. But she still has like all these things. Maybe it's also something about the time, because my older grandmother was kind of a little bit the same, but it's something in it.
But I think it's also about, it wasn't just also about collecting these things, but you're right, it was also about the way that you kind of exhibited them in your home. Like I think of my grandma, and you know, they have this very big shelving unit, and they have certain things placed in very specific manner, maybe with like behind this glass so that they don't get dusty, and
display cabinets.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And it was, maybe it was kind of like a way of showing where you were in like your, like I'm thinking like economy wise, what if you're like middle class or upper class, it could have been like a little bit of that, but perhaps also I think people back then, like,
as well, like the upper class would have like hunting trophies from their
African
safaris.
They might have had, you know, like the like the deer heads, you know. But no, I'm thinking also, I think people in the older generation had a lot more links to their family and like their heritage. So it was also kind of like, this is something that was my great grandmother's and has been passed down through generations. And there were then almost then these altar like things, because it was then this very special like historic item.
Then the item becomes something else. It also becomes like an icon or symbolic or something, which is, I also think is very interesting.
But talk a little bit about like how this like memory, this aspect of memory ties into your painting. No?
Yes, sure. Or you have to say like this kind of aspect, you have to explain a little bit more what you think about.
I mean, that is like, it's a little bit about like, you know, putting memories on display.
Yeah.
And that's like the way I see it within your painting. It's like you're trying to preserve something, but you're also showing people it. It's not just for yourself.
No. I think I've just been thinking about how, like, the symbolic of the memory, like, and how it changes when I put the things together and on top of each other. And, I mean, when I also paint it, I also bring it out of my head, and then it's changing. Like, when I now think about something that I have painted, I have also changed it, destroyed it, disintegrated it. It's like adapted it. So it's kind of also a sacrifice in the sake of art.
But is it like a therapy kind of thing as well?
Well, it has been. Maybe not in the things I do now, but definitely when I painted, I tried to paint away my fear of the darkness in the forest for 10 years. So of course, it's therapeutic.
That's a noble endeavor.
I really tried.
And did it work?
Kind of, maybe, yes.
You maybe perhaps saw things in a different way.
Yeah, I think for some people thinking is thinking in their head. For some people it's writing. For me it's painting. Painting is thinking. Like and that's like why I also think about it as like a language. But maybe language is the wrong word. But it's like, this is how I visualize, or this is like you take things away and like you look at it and it's like things, and of course it becomes like a collection maybe, and then you add them in front and then they talk to each other and create something more. That's very vague, but
like working with memories, I think you kind of like have to be vague.
Yeah.
If you're too direct, like it becomes something else. You force something into it. You know?
Yes. Yeah, because then it becomes too clear, because it's just like little bits of things, and then how they are put together, they become something more, something longer, or something shorter, or something deep, or something very shallow.
I wonder almost if, because you're deciding to work with your memories and seeing how they adapt or get destroyed or change, I wonder if actually your memories are going to change more because you're working so much with them.
That's what I think, yes.
Yeah.
Because I put them in out there, and I let people talk about them, and then you see them in a different light. Yeah, no, definitely.
But will it also improve your memory? Because this is like a thing.
No.
Because some people do this. Like the people that they can you can compete in having a good memory.
Oh yeah.
It can be like the person who has like remembered the most, decimals in pi.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's like apparently having a good memory is not like a genetic thing or like a thing. But
it's something.
But it's something you can train. Yeah.
Yeah, like these memory houses.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about your scroll that you made.
And the text within it.
Yes. That is, in a way, when it's installed, it's like this hidden text. So I guess that's kind of like, now thinking about memories, it's like a hidden memory. But do you want to talk a little bit about
what
is on the text? Or,
yeah, sure.
Or about like the scroll, because it's also very nice, this...
It's a rolled up piece of paper
installed.
that has been painted.
Yes, it's painted with gouache on aquarelle paper. And like all the other objects are like white or brown with red or green on top of them basically. And this one is blue, indigo, if you want to be precise. So it's different, but I think also when I thought about the visual of what it would look like, I thought that could it would add something that I wanted to at least see what it would look like. So I started first, and then I also was interested in just like describing this kind of process of doing the perfume bottle into an urn, like, and how it changed, and like making it, and it was like, yeah. And then I also somehow wrote this text, and then I thought it could be on the back of this. First I wanted to make it like a fold scene, but then I was like, but maybe I should just make it like a scroll.
It's funny, now I'm thinking about it, I'm realising that the scroll actually ties in very nicely with the stoppers that you've created.
Oh yeah.
Because when you think about also people who put like messages in a bottle, it's this rolled up piece of paper that gets put in.
Yeah.
So in a way, this kind of circular and this like rolled up, like, fits very nicely, like visually, but also kind of, I guess, like, what's the word?
A message in a perfume bottle.
A message in a perfume bottle.
No, I also thought it was a bit like interesting. Like I think I was thinking like what would happen if I would put papers and like hidden words inside of the bottles, like if that would be interesting. But then this kind of works out quite well, I think, with like having the text like this instead.
And the text, is this the exhibition text?
Yes, I think actually it's the exhibition text. It kind of worked out very nicely. I think I wanted to tie all the things I've been thinking about together. Like how it's kind of just like fitted in, like what kind of... Yeah, because I don't think I am a person who thinks very linearly. I think a little bit like that and a little bit like that. I think that's also why painting suits me in a sense, or the way I paint anyway. I mean, painting, I think it's, or like making in general is different. Like it's a very personal relationship, I think. But I always think a little bit like that. And I also notice when I talk, it's just...
I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we move on to, if you have, thinking about the fact that you're perhaps thinking all over the place, and this is my attempt at a bridge
very, very good.
to go into, if you have any references that you would like to add to our Thingness bibliography.
I mean, I was thinking, because it's also a bit obvious, but I have two. But then I've tried to remember what it was called. But I cannot never ever think about not ever The Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino, and I think it kind of suits like also the thing we just talked about in the end, where they
he's in the court of Kublai Khan.
Yes.
And he tries to describe Venice.
Yes, but in different ways.
Every chapter is like a different angle.
Yeah, and it's just also a collection of different cities, like told very nicely.
It's
very
quite
beautiful
nice.
Descriptions.
I'm thinking then also about then your bottles, like your little pots, in a way, thinking then that they're the same thing but told in many different ways also.
Yes, it's the same thing, definitely. It's like I tried to say something about this bottle that I don't really remember, so I tried to do it over and over again, and maybe my like vision of what this bottles actually look like, I like in the beginning I had a quite clear image, and now it's kind of just like it's gone.
But it's kind of like close to like a scientific approach in that you kind of like you work, if not in a series, like in a series of attempts, and you come at it from different angles, and like even the so-called failed ones, if there are any, are there to support the end resolution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the one I was thinking was The Castle of Cross Destinies. It's also an Italo Calvino book, and it's about a group of people who meet in a house, and they can't talk to each other, so they only talk through tarot cards. But when we see the tarot cards, the people who look at it kind of start to imagine about the stories, and the stories are quite. It's a bit horrible. I guess it's more like fairy tale or old ballads.
So kind of like dark things that meant to have like meanings in a way, so that what's the word? It's like when you take something from it.
This is interesting because then he also writes like this card was laying down, and then everyone knows it means this, and then they put this card. Okay, then it kind of has this meaning, and then it tells this story.
Kind of ties into this notion of like shared memories.
Oh yeah,
and especially like shared memories that weren't yours, maybe.
Yes, which is interesting, I think, and also it's like how. In the tarot cards, it kind of is like an image that also has a lot of meanings, how they are put together, which is like an interesting concept that I just thought of now.
Well, we'll definitely be adding Italo Calvino into our bibliography because we like him as a writer as well, so he can definitely go in there.
He's allowed.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for installing today. We're very much looking forward to
living with your work.
Living with the work, smelling the work, taking it in over the next couple of weeks.
Being very careful not to nudge it.
Yes, and knock everything. Thank you all for listening. This was Thingness.